Good evening and a warm welcome to tonight's edition of The Probe. Tonight we delve into the intriguing case of the shape-shifting, form-shifting, mutating, amoeba-like Cecilia Dapaah $1 million case. Well, we've termed it the Mutating Cecilia Dapaah case. I'll go straight into the details. I'm sure this is an issue that we've been following for some time now, but it's become necessary to delve deeper into it because of the Attorney General. We've seen the Deputy Attorney General write on the docket that has been sent to it, or they called for it from the police, and there are some recommendations, and it's bringing up some discrepancies that we need to actually get answers to, for which reason we are delving into it tonight. Well, so from the fact of the case, as we've seen from the Attorney General's recommendations, accounts of Cecilia Dapaah on missing items, what we know so far, the late brother's money, now we are told, is $800,000, and the jewelry is $95,000. We've been going through this, but the kente cloth, we are told now, is $56,000, dresses $20,000. We are hearing of handbags $35,500, a bag containing cash $200,000, another bag containing cash €300,000, and then that contribution of mother's funeral that we're hearing is $300,000, and then perfumes $1,400. We go on to the other issues that are coming up. So discrepancies, straight into that. The item on the amended charge sheet, we know that by now that we've had 3 amendments when it comes to that particular charge sheet and the AG's account. So this is what we know. For the kente cloth, on the amended charge sheet that we have, we know that it's coming up to 90,000 Ghana cedis. But from the account that we are hearing from the Attorney General, it's just 56,000. Did I say just? It's not. It's 56,000 Ghana cedi for kente cloth. Then the dresses, we are told earlier it was 95,000. But from the account that we are seeing from the Attorney General, it's 20,000 Ghana cedis. Then the men's suit. Earlier, I'm sure you know by now that we're told that there were 6 of them, which was amounting to $3,000. Now we are told it's 5. Just 5 of them, and it's amounting to $2,500. So if you work the maths, each of them costing $500. So these are some of the issues that have come up. Now, still on the amended charge sheet, we've always known that it's $1 million belonging to Cecilia Dapaah, from what we've been told. In fact, the case is in court, and the police, from all the 3 amended charge sheets, it is $1 million belonging to Cecilia Dapaah. But from the AG's account, we are now hearing that $800,000 belonging to Cecilia Dapaah's dead brother, and then 200,000 cedis belonging to Cecilia Dapaah. And we know that that 800,000 belonging to Cecilia Dapaah is actually the deceased brother and not her. And then that contained in Cecilia Dapaah's house, that's the 200,000, which is supposed to be hers. And then that of the 300,000 euros. Really, the AG has been asking for further investigations about the source of that particular money. We know special prosecutor also working on that. But going on, this is the discrepancies that we are seeing. Yeah, we can go on to the very next slide. And the date the accused was caught in action, we all know, is 6th October 2022. And then the date on subsequent complaint sheet, the very first complaint we are told is 1st July 2023. That's the date on initial complaint sheet. Then later is 4th July 2023. So this 9 months gap, that's where the question comes up as to what exactly happened between the 6th of October 2022 all the way to 4th July 2023. We are learning this evening that actually between that 9-month period, there was a case that was ongoing at the court, the juvenile court, we are told. So how come this is not contained in the docket that was sent to the Attorney General, for which reason the Attorney General is not giving any advice on what actually happened? We are told that it was during that court process that patient, we are told, was 17 at the time, but there was a bone test that was done that established that he was 18 or 19 thereabout, but a Ghana card was produced by her lawyers which showed that she was actually 17 and a juvenile at the time, for which reason they went to the circuit court and back to the juvenile court. And then during that process, we are told she absconded and then was found this year in Tamale, for which reason the case is now coming up on the 4th of July. But these are questions that are begging answers that we'll get this evening. And so the Attorney General's advice, I'll go straight into it, calling for further investigations into the true ownership of the amount of 800,000 euros. They are also asking the source and sources from which the established owner of the amount of 800,000 dollars acquired the money. Really, these are questions, more questions. And then whether the accused actually stole the full amount of 800,000 from the house of the complainant, because we know that they are also mentioning that they did not pick any items amongst others. And when she was caught, there was no money. We are told that she mentioned that she had dropped a bundle when she was found. All that in the Attorney General's advice, amongst others, on the studying of the facts of the case. And also the sources from which the established owner of the amount of $200,000 and 300,000 euros acquired the money, which we are now learning that one, we are told, is for Cecilia Dapaah. The 800,000 is for the dead brother. Dead men don't talk. What really then will happen? So the Attorney General has announced that it is taking over the prosecution of the case. When exactly is that starting? Amongst others, we know we're in court just last week, and the issues came up. The second complainant, the second accused, lawyers had raised concerns about the fact that his client has not stolen any money. She's a lactating mother, and they've refused bail, amongst others. These and more are issues that we'll be delving into tonight here on The Probe. We are live on the Joy News channel. We are also on Joy 99.7 FM for our radio audience. We are on DSTV channel 421. GoTV is 144. We are on myjoyonline.com, all our social media platforms. Don't forget, you can tweet at us with hashtag The Probe. I am Emefa Apau, a quick turnaround, and my guest for tonight is Ghana's Deputy Attorney General, Alfred Tuah-Yeboah, who will shed light on the recommendations that his outfit is giving to the police. Really, the job that has been done by the police, good job or poor job? More questions than answers. Who is actually giving us all the answers that we need? Whose account should we believe? Stay with me here on The Probe. Right back after the break. You're welcome back. This is The Probe here on the Joy News channel. We're on DSTV channel 421, GoTV 125. We're on myjoyonline.com. We're on radio, it's Joy 99.7 FM. And we are looking at the Mutating Cecilia Dapaah case. Some have said it's a shape-shifting. Some have said it looks like an amoeba sort of situation. But thankfully, the Deputy Attorney General, Alfred Tuah-Yeboah, is my guest. He's joining us via Zoom. Thank you so much for your time here on The Probe tonight, sir. I hope you're doing well, Mr. Tuah-Yeboah.
I'm doing so well, my son, and you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking. Good to see you. So there are a lot of questions that have come up that we are grateful that you are here with us tonight to give us answers to. But first off, starting all this, we've always seen the police going to court in terms of even the amended charge sheet, the 3 times that has been amended. It's been $1 million belonging to Cecilia Dapaah. And even though we are now hearing that it is 800,000 that belongs to the brother, they were still in court, even as at just last week, mentioning that $1 million is for Cecilia Dapaah. How do we really reconcile this versus what you've written, your accounts, versus what the police has actually given us?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, I think this matter is of interest to a lot of Ghanaians, including me and then you. It's also of interest to the state. The issues about the figures. The Attorney General took hold of the docket and we decided to go through the docket. And in our review of dockets at the AG's office, we limit ourselves to the documents on the docket. We limit ourselves to the facts and evidence on the docket. And so, having gone through the docket, having perused through it, we came to this conclusion that there are some issues about the amount stated in the charge sheet. Mm-hmm. That's how come we are talking about 800,000 allegedly belonging to the deceased brother of Madam Cecilia Dapaah, and the other 200,000 also, we are unable to determine who owns that money based on the document that was submitted to us by the police.
So if the police submitted a docket to you mentioning that 800,000 or giving you a breakdown saying that this one belonged to the dead man, how is it that they are in court mentioning that 1 million is for Cecilia Dapaah? I'm sure you've raised questions about that.
Yes, we were also concerned about it. That's why if you read our advice, we've indicated that they should just establish who owns the $800,000. Because there is a statement from Madam Cecilia Dapaah to that effect. There is also a statement from a brother of Madam Cecilia Dapaah to that effect. And these documents were submitted to us by the police. Of course, they may want to say they don't believe the story of the brother of Madam Cecilia Dapaah. They may want to say so. But that does not mean that they should not investigate to see whether indeed that statement by the brother, that statement by Madam Dapaah are true. And that's one of the issues that we raised in our advice to the police.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the work done by the police and your own assessment of the work that has been done, because you've given some directive. But within that period, you know, the incident happened on the 6th of October, 2022. And then we're hearing that the case was filed, or the complaint was filed on the 1st of July and then subsequently 4th of July. And then we've seen some amendments to it. So the concern was the gap, the 9 months gap within that period. We are learning tonight that indeed there was a case that was held, that was actually, Patience was being tried at the juvenile court. And then there were concerns about her age, which then went to the circuit court, amongst others. Did it come up in the docket that was given to you by the police?
The docket that was submitted to us had nothing about a case pending in any juvenile court. The only hint we had in that docket was that a report was made to the police at Tesano in October. But even that, we read it, that we could not even find the complaint that was lodged in October 2022. And so in terms of a prosecution going on in the juvenile court or in the circuit court, we are not aware. And this advice we gave to the police, if indeed such a prosecution is going on in the juvenile court, they must alert us and submit that docket also to us. Maybe the issue that we raised may be contained in that particular matter. So we advise based on the single docket the police submitted to us.
But Mr. Tuah-Yeboah, then this raises concerns for all of us that this particular case that is of interest to you, at least, there have been issues about threshold and you not being informed, amongst others. These are issues we'll come into. But the concern that this particular case was being tried at a point where we told Patience absconded, and then the issues about her age came up, for which reason was at the juvenile court and all. And this Tesano concern that you raised in the examination of the docket, which was the very first, which you said there is nothing in the docket on the complaint made by Daniel Osei-Kuffour or any member of the household at the Tesano police station. But this case that we are told, from what I'm seeing from that proceeding, that court case was based on this particular Tesano police station complaint that was filed by Daniel Osei-Kuffour. How is it that the police will not inform you? And it raises concerns about our prosecution. And should we believe what we are hearing?
We are also very much concerned, having heard this. We are also very much concerned. And I think that's the very reason why, if you look through our advice, we indicated to the police that anytime they have a matter beyond a certain threshold, they must submit such a docket to the Attorney General for advice. And this is news to us. We cannot explain why the police should submit a docket and decide not to submit that docket to us for our perusal and subsequent advice. So we are actually bothered, and we will go in fact, we go into this matter and get to the root of this particular matter. If there are other dockets, we need to have everything before we can make a holistic review of the matter. But as we have it now, we review only one docket. The docket which the police sent to us contained the statement of Madam Cecilia Dapaah in July, the brother in July, the husband in July, and the other accused persons also in July.
So, Mr. Tuah-Yeboah, then what happens now that you are learning that it was not contained in the dockets that you were giving, which you called for? I'm sure you called for everything that concerns this particular case. And if the police withheld information from you in terms of the fact that there was a leg that was in another court and that was not given to you, what happens?
Yes. Now that the police have our letter, they may choose to submit that docket to us, because we raise issues about the Tesano matter. In their response, they may on their own submit that docket to us. But if they do not do that, definitely within the week, we'll write to them for that docket, because we need to look at that docket also.
But how is it that you had informed the police that if a matter or a case comes to them that goes beyond the threshold of 500,000, it should come to the Attorney General? I'm just seeing it on page 5 of this particular document, and I'm wondering, how is it that the police will ignore your directive?
We cannot explain, because we've been receiving a lot of petitions from accused persons and complainants in various cases in Accra and all over the country, calling on us to call for the docket, review, and then advise. And realize that most of those who petitioned had issues with money. Some of them ran into the millions of Ghana cedis. So to avoid any delays and to avoid any mistrust, we then wrote to the police asking them if there is any matter above 500,000 Ghana cedis, they must submit such a docket to us for our review and advice to avoid receiving a lot of petitions from accused persons and then complainants.
But are you surprised that this particular directive was ignored?
We are surprised.
And beyond being surprised, what happens?
Now that we've written to them, we've also alerted them about the earlier letter we sent to them, it is our hope that they will comply with the letter that we sent to them in April this year.
Well, we'll get into the issues that have come up because I know that there are a lot of questions that needs answers that has come up so far. But let me quickly find out from you, knowing the back and forth that we've seen in terms of some information being withheld among others. You have studied that docket. I haven't. I've only read your recommendations. I've seen the charge sheet amongst others. What will be your own assessment of the work that has been done by the police when it comes to this matter so far?
So far, the police have done some work in this particular case. They have taken statements from the complainants, taken statements from the complainants' witnesses. They've taken caution and charge statements from the accused persons. They've also conducted investigations into how the money was used allegedly by the accused persons. But there are some areas that they do not investigate into. And we think that those areas may have to look at, especially if a complainant walks into a police station and says that his amount or his money totaling perhaps $2 million, $1 million, 500,000 Ghana cedis. You may want to take his statement and take his complaint. Then the suspects may be invited, but it should also be the duty of the police to investigate the complainant who lodged such a complaint, to find out whether indeed he had that money and where he also had that money. Because in terms of criminal prosecution, the threshold is very high. You must prove your case beyond reasonable doubt. So the person comes to you and tells you, I had 5 million in my room, it's been stolen. If you go to court, you must prove that that person had 5 million Ghana cedis in his room. If you're unable to prove that the accused person denies taking such money, you are likely to lose the case in court.
But Mr. Tuah-Yeboah, there's been talk about I'm sure you've heard it before, and let me just be blunt about it. Really, there are concerns about why this particular interest of the AG in this matter. You have rightly said that there have been a lot of complaints. This is not the first time the police is dealing with a matter that is beyond this particular threshold. But it appears that you're particularly interested in this matter because it involves Cecilia Dapaah and the public uproar. It appears you are coming to the rescue of Cecilia Dapaah.
Far from that.
And forcing things down the throat of the police and not allowing them to do their investigation.
Far from that. If I may take our viewers through the process that we go through in our ministry. Now, the Attorney General, per our Constitution, is the person responsible for the initiation and conduct of all criminal cases in Ghana. Within the same Constitution, Article 88(4), he reserves the right to give other institutions or other agencies authorization to prosecute on his behalf. So all the investigations that the police have been doing, they do so on behalf of the Attorney General. And now the Attorney General, if you go to court throughout the country, you will meet hundreds of police officers prosecuting cases in court. They do so on behalf of the Attorney General. And when a matter comes up, there are 3 ways that the Attorney General may be seized with that particular matter, or may have that docket in his possession. 1, when the police receives a complaint and takes the statement of the complainant as well as the accused persons. The complainant or the accused person has the right to petition the Attorney General for his intervention.
Well, in this case, was there a petition? Did Cecilia Dapaah petition the Attorney General?
I'll be there very soon.
Okay.
That's the first one. The second one is where the police on their own, looking at the nature of the case, submits the docket to the Attorney General. The third one is where the Attorney General himself, having heard of a particular matter, may write to the police and call for the docket. In this particular case, the police so much, that's what I would say, the police on their own submitted the docket to the Attorney General for our review and advice. And having submitted the docket to us for our review and our advice, we have a responsibility to look through the docket, review it, and advise them accordingly. So this is exactly what we did in this particular case. Okay. It is not about any special interest. We think crime is crime. It matters not who is involved. I speaking, if I decide to engage in a criminal activity, the fact that I'm a deputy attorney general does not mean that I should absolve of that crime. I must be made to go through the full rigors of the law. But if you come to
that's the ideal situation. But the reality on the ground, we know that's not what happens most of the time. Your government will definitely come to your rescue in our part of the world.
Actually, I have not cited instances where political exposed persons, reports have been lodged to the police, they've been arrested, processed, and the attorney has said, no, don't prosecute them, unless you want to give me examples. Now, if you come to the office of the Attorney General, the actual work, I can tell, is not done by the Attorney General or his deputies. The actual work is done by the attorneys in the ministry, headed by the Director of Public Prosecution.
Okay.
They are not political, they are not politicians. They do their work in accordance with their training. And so, in case there's any advice, whether it's this particular matter or any other matter, what I can tell the public is that the advice that you see isn't the advice that the attorney himself sat on the case to review, but advice that the officers in the ministry have offered. Okay.
So I was asking earlier if Cecilia Dapaah has actually approached the Attorney General, petitioned the AG to look into this particular matter. Was that the petition? No.
No.
Okay. But the AG just took interest in this particular matter.
In this particular matter, the police submitted the docket to us.
Without you calling for it? Okay.
No.
Okay.
If you read their letter, if you are writing to them, you would have said you have referenced our letter to them. But in their letter, they said they were just submitted to us for our review and advice. And I think it was a step in the right direction.
But it's belated because you had asked them that every time it comes, they should come to you before they start the process. But they started the process before coming to you on it.
Now, it is not as if every time it comes, they must wait for us. No.
Okay.
If someone walks into a police station, the police have to do their job.
Okay.
They will take your statement, start from there. They will investigate. But we are saying before you go to court, unless, of course, after arresting the accused person, we take the person to court for it to be either remanded or granted bail. But thereafter, refer the docket to us for our review and advice. At least that's the essence of justice. Because the accused person there may think that things are not being done right, or the client may be thinking that things are not being done right. So we give it to our attorneys, they will review, and based on the review, the advice is offered.
So now that you've taken over prosecution of this case, and you've given them some time to also do further investigations, you're looking for source of the money amongst others. Really, do you have any timelines that you've given the police to submit back to you, further investigations or the directive that you've given them?
We did not give them any timeline, but that does not mean that they can hold the docket for a long period of time. But the matter is already in court. So we expect them to work within a reasonable time, do all the investigation, but even the information you just provided about the case pending before a juvenile court, they must also furnish us with that docket. And also let us know, for you may know, the question we've raised in our advice may be contained in that particular matter. In which case, there's no need for them to do any further investigations.
Okay.
So we're waiting for them to respond to our opinion in a reasonable time so that the matter can proceed.
But now that the AG is taking over this case, let's talk about what would change briefly. Then we can get into the audience questions because the police was doing a fair job or a fantastic job according to them. What would change? What would we see differently? A fast tracking of the case, what would change?
Now, if the police are able to finish their investigations and the docket is submitted to us for prosecution, the docket will be assigned to an attorney, that's a lawyer, and that lawyer will then take over the case and prosecute the case in court. And the process in court, you all know, you have to file your witness statements. But let me add that before we hand over a docket to an attorney to prosecute, we always make sure that we get ourselves convinced that per the evidence we have on record, the case that has been given to that attorney is a case that can be prosecuted in court.
Okay.
So you may even bring the investigations, everything, but we may realize that now we have about 5 accused persons. Maybe we say 1, 2, or 3 may not be part of it, or 2 or maybe part of it.
And speaking about the accused persons, Mr. Tuah-Yeboah, I see that you punched a bit of holes in each person's case. Let's talk about the father of Patience Botwe, for instance, Kweku Botwe. I see on page 7, very first paragraph, you say there's not enough evidence to show that the fourth accused, father of the first accused, knew that the money his daughter gave him was stolen. Are you recommending that charges dropped against him?
You see, if you go through the dockets, the only evidence on record that we had is that the accused person, one of them gave some amount of money to the father. Reasonably, can you say that the fact that your son or your daughter gives you money, you should know that your daughter or son has stolen the money? We have to do further investigations. For you may know, he knew. Absent any further evidence, it may be difficult maybe to proceed with some of the accused persons. But with regard to the fourth accused person and even all the accused persons, we want the police to expand the investigation, as we said, expand the investigations. We may get more evidence to proceed with the trial, or we want to say some of them may have to be taken up out of this trial.
Okay, but are you not concerned if it comes up that indeed this $800,000 belongs to Cecilia Dapaah's dead brother? Some we are told, we are hearing that was a shoemaker, and we are told he's also a chief, but we are told that chieftaincy, there's no land, attached to that particular chieftaincy from what we are told. Really, are you not concerned about that particular case? I know you are asking for further investigations, but I'm sure you're doing some work in the background also. As AG, Deputy AG, you must be concerned, aren't you?
Yes, it is normal for Ghanaians to have money. If you even have $10 billion, that's your money. But it's also normal for the security agencies to also look into the circumstances under which you made that money. So granted that the $800,000 belongs to the late brother of Madam Cecilia Dapaah, the next question is, how did he come by that money? If that money was for him, was it from his businesses? If it was from his businesses, was he paying the taxes on it? If it wasn't, what was the source? That's why if we just looked at issues of money laundering and then other financial crimes, that we have to investigate into that. If you get ourselves satisfied that the source of that money has no problems with it, then we'll know the step that we want to take. If we also get to know that that money does not belong to the deceased brother, but for Madam Cecilia Dapaah, she also has to go through the same process of answering where she had it, and for us to know whether there's an issue of money laundering or other financial crimes.
Okay, and I'm sure as it keeps developing legs, this particular issue, more than an octopus, now we are hearing that the wife of the deceased has also come up, seeking interest in that particular money since they say it belongs to the dead husband. I'm sure that has been brought to your attention.
Yes, I've also heard about that. The wife and the children definitely will have an interest if the deceased husband had such an amount of money. Because the man might have died either testate or intestate, whichever way, they have an interest in it. So if the wife is taking a step to also get a share of that money in accordance with law, I think she's taking the right step.
Okay, let's not leave our audience out, because I know that most of the questions that I would want to ask subsequently, audience are also asking. So, yeah, if you're ready, let's get into the questions, the first batch of them. And this one is from Sule. What alternatives are you offering government when you... Okay, no, there's a wrong one. So we have this one from Frank. It says, I get the impression that the AG was not aware of this case until it became public. And if that is the case, should we not be worried that the state's lawyer was not aware? That's Frank's question. And we have this one also, the next one. Okay, so we have another one from Ransford. It says, did the Attorney General intervene simply to help Cecilia Dapaah and the government for that matter because of the public uproar about a minister keeping such huge sums of money in her home? That's a Ransford's question. And we have another one also. We go into Sunkwa's question. It says, is the account we're hearing now about the $800,000 belonging to a dead man not just an afterthought? I think it's just diversionary. Sunkwa's question. And we take one last one. Lord says, MFI, I'm of the view that because dead men can talk and we are all aware, here's what will happen. We shall be told at some point that the crucial piece to solve this jigsaw puzzle is with a dead man, so the case can go to its logical, or get to its logical conclusion. So this is the first batch. So we'll get your comments on some of them. I think some of them we've been speaking about, but really the account we are hearing, Sunkwa's question, about this $800,000 belonging to Cecilia Dapaah's dead brother, an afterthought. Is it not just diversionary?
We received a docket from the police. In that docket was a statement made by Madam Cecilia Dapaah about the ownership of $800,000. We received a docket where a brother of Madam Cecilia Dapaah also gave a statement to the police that he brought that money from Kumasi to Accra. So before the docket got to us, these statements were in it. And for that matter, there's no way that we can determine whether it is an afterthought or it isn't.
Okay.
This matter, we advise that should be investigated further. If after investigations, it turns out that the statement given by Madam Cecilia Dapaah and the brother in the early part of July are untrue, then we can conclude that that claim that the money belongs to the deceased brother is an afterthought. If we are not able to get anything contrary to that, then we may have to work with it. But the police will have to dig deeper to know whether indeed the deceased brother owned that money. And the police, they have the skills. They have everything that they can use in determining or in getting to the bottom of this particular matter. And every lawyer knows that if a deceased person owns any kind of property, getting to know whether the person owns that property or not is something that can be done. So this money, I think the police, they are on top of their job and they can get to the bottom of this particular matter. So let's give the police the benefit of the doubt and then wait for them to see what happens out of their investigations.
So we'll not be told at any point in time that dead men can talk. And, you know, Lord is raising the concern that it appears that the crucial piece of the jigsaw puzzle will be told is with the dead man, so the case won't go anywhere.
It's true that dead men don't talk, but the state will not say because dead men don't talk, you have to take the statement given by a deceased person's brother or sister as a gospel proof.
Okay.
That piece of evidence, I can assure you, if it is tendered in court, lawyers for the accused persons will definitely cross-examine those people who may want to give evidence on that line. So we need to be convinced, as prosecutors, we need to be convinced that that evidence, if we seek to tender it in court, will not be a challenge. And that's the reason why we are very particular about knowing that one. If we're able to know it and we assume that because they've said it's for the deceased brother, just take it, then perhaps we're not doing what we're supposed to do as prosecutors.
Well, Frank's question is, he's of the view that he gets the impression that the AG was not aware of this case until it became public. And if that's the case, should we not be worried that the state's lawyer was not aware?
Interestingly, we got to know about this case when the Chronicle published it. That was the first time. I think it was on the Friday.
How, Mr. Tuah-Yeboah, how are we supposed to believe this?
And I think it's something that the police should be in a position to answer, because they were prosecuting the case. And you know, if you have a case in Ghana and the police are prosecuting it, if you sit in Accra as the Attorney General, you may not know everything unless it's brought to your attention. So had it been the fact that there was a publication, perhaps you wouldn't have even known. If the police had actually complied with our earlier directive to submit cases above 500,000 pesos, perhaps all these things wouldn't have happened.
And I'm sure that a lot of people will have the same reaction. But Ransford, I'm sure you've been speaking to his question, but he was asking whether you simply intervened because you want to help Cecilia Dapaah and the government for that matter because of the public uproar. Maybe you can touch on it briefly again. Is that the case?
We are not in the least prepared to intervene because of personalities to cover up. No. If we were to do that, they will be sending a dangerous signal to the people out there. That if you're a public officer, if you're a politically exposed person or a politician, you want to do things and people will not question it. We are doing a very genuine work. And with this work that we are doing, we are not going to investigate. The police will have to investigate. And I've always told people that you can get a good case to prosecute depending on the investigations done by the police. So we are interested in the police doing all the investigations, getting us all what we need so that this case can proceed in court. It might also be possible that after the investigations, we may have to get other accused persons.
Okay.
For example, if at the end of the investigation, it turns out that the amount you're talking about actually belongs to Madam Cecilia Dapaah, and she was able to justify how she came by that money, and there's an aspect of money laundering, she'll be charged. She'll be charged. So I'm just waiting for the police to conduct the investigations. There's no attempt whatsoever. It's a genuine quest to ensure that we get to the bottom of this particular matter and nothing else.
Okay, but if I heard you right, just moments ago, you mentioned that all criminal cases are prosecuted by your outfit, which is the AG. And I'm wondering why this particular criminal case, you were not aware.
Yes, we prosecute, in fact, we prosecute all criminal cases by the Constitution. We've also given other institutions the authority to prosecute on our behalf. So until these authorities or these agencies also come up or come to us to tell us we are prosecuting this particular case, we will not be in a position to know. I know that at a point in time, there was this project where we could just link the police CID to the AG by means of ICT, so that the moment even a complaint is received, automatically it will trigger at our end. And that's a project that we all need to look at, to see so that when a matter starts at any police station in Ghana, there should be a mechanism where sitting in Accra, you can know that there is matter in this particular police station, there is matter in this particular court. But because you don't have it, until or unless you are notified, you will not be in a position to know.
But as our lawyer, if we hear you lamenting at this point that certain cases, even though you have given the mandate for other institutions to prosecute on your behalf, even though you're supposed to be in charge of all criminal cases, it's a matter of concern to us because that's your mandate. That's what we expect you to do. And if some of these issues can slip through the cracks, we should be worried.
You see, Ghana, if we are to copy the example of Kenya, in Kenya, prosecution is done by lawyers, attorneys, not the police. In Kenya, all cases are prosecuted by attorneys in the office of their prosecution office. But in Ghana, over 80% of the cases are prosecuted by the police. So moving forward, are we ready to expand the office of the Attorney General so that we can get a lot of lawyers, so that we do all the prosecution without the police even doing any single prosecution? In that case, the police would then have to just investigate. After they investigate, they will submit their findings to us. then we'll commence our investigation, our review, and then advise, and then prosecution. But because we don't have it, that they have to investigate and in some cases prosecute. There's that kind of challenge there. But it's a conversation that I think we all need to look at and see how best, because we must get the best system. If you go to the US, as you know, the DOJ, the Department of Justice, they initiate investigations and prosecute. But in Ghana, the Office of Attorney General does not investigate. Another agency investigates. In Ghana, if you go to Tuah-Yeboah is an agency under the Office of Attorney General, but they initiate investigations, they also prosecute. If you go to OSP, they initiate and then prosecute, but the Attorney General Office itself does not investigate. It only prosecutes.
Since you've mentioned the OSP, we know that they are also handling a part of this particular issue. And now that I'm seeing your recommendations back to the police in order not for double work to be done, are we in tandem on this with the OSP when it comes to this particular issue?
The OSP operates under a limited domain, and they cannot go outside their domain. We are not oblivious of their interest in this matter and the investigation they have also initiated. But there's a limit to which they can go. And we do not want to leave any void between the OSP and our side. So if the OSP is to investigate corruption and corruption-related offenses as defined under Section 79 of their Act, it means that if there are other offenses outside that one, they cannot go into it. For instance, if I'm assuming, if the money you're talking about is the money from drug trafficking, OSP cannot prosecute it. OSP cannot deal with money laundering. We have to take over that one. So we don't want to do this whereby OSP do its work, and then that aspect may be left. That's why we just told the police to conduct investigation into those areas. We are very mindful of the work of the OSP and the work of the police service, who are our investigators.
Okay. Well, let's get into the next batch of questions. Yeah, let's get into it. We have the next batch, one from Gavivina. Okay. Why is the latest account of the AG about the money belonging to Cecilia's late brother not in any of the charge sheet that was amended about 3 times? Where's the AG getting this account from? Gavivina, we'll take yours. And then we have Stephen. So whose report should we believe now? Police, AG, Cecilia Dapaah, or who? That's a key question. Danny says, what kind of relationship does the Attorney General and the Special Prosecutor have? And so far, does your roles not overlap? Are they working together on this particular case? Okay. And Tony says, you have directed further investigations to be conducted. What are the timelines? Mami says, can we get some education on how the AG's outfit obtains docket from the police? Kwesi says, can the Deputy AG look us in the eyes and assure us that this issue will not become a foolish case at the end of the day, because I feel everything is being done to simply water down the fact that the woman kept huge sums of money in her home, and we all know she's not alone in this. So that's some of your questions. So let's, I think it's the final batch for this one. We'll check if we have more of your questions. But so these are some of the concerns that have been raised. And Ms. Atia, so why is the latest account? Where is the AG getting that from? I think you've been touching on it, that it was in the docket. Is that the case?
In the docket. Okay. The docket that the police submitted to us. So we are even surprised that the police, in their own facts, did not even mention. If you have the charge sheet, the lawyers who are listening to me or watching me, if they have a copy of the charge sheet and the facts, you realize that in the facts, the police did not mention how, they even talk about the monies.
The breakdown.
They only talk about what the monies were used for. So that's a key question. But they had this on the file. In the file they submitted to the court, the clerk indicated that when Madam Dapaah came, she said A amount or Y amount. When the husband came, A or Y amount or X amount. But that's very silent. So we are surprised that with this evidence on their file, they never touched on it. And that's why we are directing them that that statement, they took it. they gave that statement to us. We are not going to accept that that's because they took it. They must investigate. Even though someone has said that money belongs to the late brother, they must go deeper to find out whether indeed that money belongs to the late brother. So there's no attempt whatsoever to, water down this particular case. Far from that. I saw this because of someone, can we look into the eyes of Ghanaians? I can look into the eyes of Ghanaians, 100%, and cross my heart out and tell everyone that we are not prepared to cover up in any way. This ministry that we've been posted to as ministers, that's the only ministry where your peers can assess you. Was manned by lawyers. We are lawyers. Our colleague lawyers who can have the right, or they have every opportunity to also assess us, because we are doing the work for which we were trained as lawyers. So in terms of the job that we do it as professional lawyers, because posterity will tomorrow or in the near future judge us based on the advice or the work that we do in the ministry. So the learned Attorney General, my good self and my sister Diana, who are the political appointees in the ministry, we are working as lawyers, properly trained, and we are mindful of the fact that in the future, whatever that we do there may be even assessed by students. So we need to do the right thing and nothing else.
Okay. Well, they talk about the relationship between the Attorney General and Special Prosecutor. But before then, Stephen is asking, whose report do you think we should believe now? The police, your outfit, Cecilia Dapaah, or who?
For now, believe our reports, but subject to the investigations of the police. Because the report that we issue is based on the information the police provided to us. We've asked them to go back and do further work.
But it is emerging that some issues were actually left out. Some key issues were left out in that docket. So how do you say that we should believe your account, which is based on the work that the police did, which you have directed that they should go back and do a better job?
Yes, because our work, the tools that or the materials that we use, we were not the ones who prepared those primary materials. So our advice is based on the work done by the police. So our side, we cannot be blamed because we work on information given us by the police. And if indeed there is a matter pending in the juvenile court, that will be the first person to concede that our advice may not be complete without having access to that particular docket. Okay. So we need it, and we get access to it.
Well, so Tony was talking about the timelines. I think you alluded to it earlier, but he says since you've directed further investigations to be conducted, what are the timelines? I think you mentioned that there are no timelines, but at least you should be able to tell us something, really. When exactly are we expecting something?
Yes, there are no timelines. We also know that some of the accused persons are in custody. They are not on bail, they are in custody. They cannot be in custody because the AG is still conducting or asking the police to conduct further investigations. And so, in the interest of justice, we'll be urging the police to act expeditiously in their investigations and then come up with what their findings for us to eventually know whether to prosecute, whether not to prosecute, who to prosecute, and who not to prosecute.
And talking about some of the accused persons still in custody raises key concerns. One of them, we are told, is a lactating mother, has a 6-month-old baby, and we know that every crime in Ghana is bailable, including murder. So how is it that we still have this accused person, even though she's a lactating mother, still in custody without being granted bail?
Our understanding is that that accused person was granted bail, but it has to do with the conditions of the bail. And we do not determine the conditions. The conditions are determined by the courts. So it's not a duty of the lawyers for that accused person, if they think the conditions are harsh, to file for a variation of the bail conditions. That is within the reserve of lawyers for that accused person. The other accused persons, I think they will be in court next week. their lawyers may have to do their job. But when it comes to a grant of bail, we do not determine it.
Of course, you do not, but we're told that at least the lawyers tell us that they've been trying to get that, but they've been, you know how these tactics work sometimes. There was a 2-week period that was given, but really, are there no considerations whatsoever for the fact that this woman is breastfeeding and that they have to take this baby to the cells for breastfeeding, amongst others?
I would rather urge the lawyers for the accused persons to push. I was in private practice. I went through similar processes. Your clients may be refused bail, but you keep knocking. And I'm very convinced that at the end of the day, they may be granted bail by the court, but we don't have control over it.
Okay. Well, and there was one that they wanted some education on what kind of relationship the Attorney General and Special Prosecutor have, and so far, your roles, whether they are overlapping and whether you are working together on this particular case.
Yes, the Office of the Special Prosecutor is an independent body that has been authorized by the Attorney General to work in a limited area. The OSP has been limiting itself to that area. So in terms of conflict, there's no conflict at all. Rather, there's that kind of collaboration. Because, you know, now the OSP, as I said, has also commenced investigations into this particular matter with respect to corruption-related offenses. The information that they may have, if the police also conduct this, it's possible that these two agents may even want to share notes. It's possible. So they are all working in the interest of the state. But the OSP is within a certain area. The police, they have a larger area that they investigate or they do their work. So that relationship is very healthy, no problems, and let's also support the OSP to do its job.
And Mami wants some education on how the AG's outfit obtains dockets from the police.
I've explained earlier 3 ways. There's either someone petitions, and the petitioner may be the accused person or the complainant.
Okay.
But the fact that his petition doesn't mean automatically call for a docket. If you send a petition to the AG's office, the attorneys there will have to establish to see whether there's a basis for the petition. If there's a basis, you call for the docket. Second, if the police on their own, having taken up a matter, decide to submit the docket to the attorney, that's also allowed. Then the attorney himself may also want to call for a docket. So these are 3 possible ways that a docket can be sent to the AG's office for advice.
Okay. Well, in wrapping up, Mr. Tuah-Yeboah, because we've exhausted some of the questions that have come in, and we'll get more. I see that there are more that are coming in, but from the recommendations, and we've read portions of it, gone through the holes that you've punched into the work that was done so far. And since your outfit is taking over prosecution, would you say, on the face value of what you've seen and the recommendations that you've given to the police, is this a good case? You are a lawyer as well.
On the face, that's what I say, on the face of the record, there is a prima facie case for that to warrant the prosecution of this particular matter, particularly this accused person who has been arrested. On the face of the evidence that we examined in the case docket, some amounts of money will need to go deep to know who owns what. On the face of the record, that is the evidence available to us, there's the need for us to also look at some of the accused persons, whether they deserve to be prosecuted or not prosecuted.
Which accused persons in particular in this matter? I know we've raised Kweku Butre's case. There's one also on Malik Dauda, which is the 5th accused person, whether he received money from the accused person amongst others. So from what you see so far, which one of them are key questions that comes up apart from Patience Butre?
Yes, I think if you look at the first and the second accused persons, there's issue about jewelry and then the theft of Madame Dapaah's jewelry and bags. One of them is denying that she never took any of those things. The other one, the police were able to find bags belonging to Madame Dapaah in her possession. So there's some form of evidence that will warrant our interest in her. So it means that it's possible that one of them may not be charged for stealing those things, but the other may be charged stealing that one. Then in our advice, we talked about duplicity. I said that one is something that lawyers who are watching me will understand. If someone comes to your home to see 100 items, he stole you at $10,000, he stole $50,000 belonging to your wife, $100,000 belonging to your son, you can't lump them together. If you have separate charges, it's possible that an accused person may even be facing 500 charges at the same time. So we also advise the police that we want to be sure that we have not lump sums that will lead to a situation where lawyers raise that matter in court about duplicity of charges. Okay. So we decided to cross all the T's and dot all the I's before we move on. The Ghanaians should trust us. We are doing a genuine work because we know that as lawyers, we'll be judged by our peers based on the work that we do in this ministry. And that's what we are doing. We have to do the right thing.
Mr. Alfred Tuah-Yeboah, Deputy Attorney General, Ghana, we are grateful for your time here on The Probe tonight. And that's it for tonight's edition of The Probe. To my colleagues, Blessed Suga and Aisha Ibrahim, many thanks for doing me the honors whilst I was away. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. And on behalf of the entire production team, we say thank you for being a part. For our radio audience, A Walk with Jesus is up next. I am MF Apau. Have a good evening.